Welcome back to the Product Biz Podcast. Today we have a super special guest. Her name is Nancy, and she is here with us to tell her story of how she got her products into Anthropologie, which I am so excited to hear the details because Nancy sent me an email a couple months ago, and she is a member of my Etsy Algorithm Secrets program and reached out and told me she got her products into Anthropologie. And I was like, I want to know more. And let's chat on the podcast so other people can hear how she got this awesome accomplishment and how her business has grown. So, welcome, Nancy, to the show. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So, I want to start with first the basics of tell us about the products you make, how you got started. Let's start there and see where the conversation goes.
Yeah, right now I have a business called Brighter Day Pigments. I make handmade watercolors and they are known for their intensity. That's why I call it Brighter Day. They are more pigmented than traditional watercolors that you would use in the store. Because of that, they kind of work a little bit differently. They go on more smoothie and they look a little bit more like acrylic paint, maybe. They don't, you can make them washy to look like watercolor. You just need to add more water so they're a little more flexible than regular paints.
I love it. And how did you get started with this? Because I can see your background and it's a beautiful painting that you told me that you did. So, did
Mhm.
you get started creating these watercolor pigments and watercolors because you couldn't find anything that was deep enough, colorful enough, or how did this come about?
That's correct. So when I am an artist myself, and I've been a painter my whole life, and I have a degree in art and things like that. And so when I have been painting, I wasn't really satisfied with the paints that I was finding. And through kind of like a process, like of researching and figuring things out, really I discovered the only way to control what's in your paint is to make it yourself. And so I started making it myself, and then as I would exhibit my work, different people would ask me, where did you get this color? Where did you get that color? Where'd you get? And I would say I made it. And so then it gradually evolved into its own business.
That is so cool. So, when you first started to make your own pigments, what was that like? How did you figure out how to do it? Were you just trial and error, messing around, or tell us about that?
Well, I did have a teacher in college his name is Bruce Smith, who is still a friend of mine, and he makes all of his own materials. And so he did teach us how to do it in college. And so really I went back to him and I started like experimenting and um working with just different, so I generally knew how to do it, but then I started experimenting and working with different materials. I was an oil painter, so I make oil paint as well, but I don't sell it as much. But I was starting to use watercolor to sketch and to plan out my paintings, and then that kind of evolved into something more. Watercolor is just a great medium to be able to use quickly and easily, and also easier to sell in that way.
I love it. Now, talk to us a little bit about the process of how you make your pigments. Because on social media, you post these awesome reels of literally like you're mixing the powder and the colors, and you can see
Mhm.
how bright they are. So, talk us through a little bit of the process of what it takes to make one of your pigments.
Yeah, no problem. So I do use pigment dealers. So I get pigments from a variety of different sources. They're all historic sources. So I know that they'll be reliable pigments, and so that um, the term that artists use is called archival. But really what that means is that um, your image should last for about 100 years on your painting. So, I you can forage for pigments. So I personally don't make the pigments myself. Like I don't go out and dig for them. That is something some people do, and you can do that. I use just a whole bunch of dealers, and I use a whole bunch of different types of pigments. So I use pigments that are made out of like rocks, soils, and plants. And then also the really bright pigments are a synthetic pigment. So those kind of unnatural colors that you'll find that I kind of specialize in, those are synthetic pigments that are man-made.
And then what do you do? So, you take these
Oh yeah.
materials and you mix them. Like, what do you mix them with, and what's that process like?
Yeah, so I actually use gum arabic, which is the binder for watercolor, and it's made out of a tree sap. I actually have a recipe for that as myself as well. So then I buy um, that gum arabic and I reconstitute it. It comes in like a powder and I reconstitute it into like a tree sap and it looks like maple syrup. I mean, it kind of is like maple syrup. And then I do show that in my videos. You'll see that pouring of that liquid. It's called gum arabic. And that's what holds the paint together. And then to actually make the gum arabic and the pigment stick together, you have to grind it. And so I use a glass muller and I put it on a glass slab and I grind it with a glass muller against the glass slab and that presses the pigment into the binder.
And then you have this big batch of this pigment and you put it into essentially like watercolor trays, like your traditional watercolor trays, but it's with your extremely pigmented different colors, right?
Yes, that's right. So I get all these little pans and they are so watercolor has all of its own sizes. So those are standard watercolor pans, which I use because if you had other watercolor palettes, you could interchange those into your palette.
That's awesome. I love it. It's so much fun. Like your videos are just mesmerizing to see it all mixed together and the beautiful colors that come about too. I want to know from you, how come you don't think other watercolors are as prominent as yours? Is watercolor just traditionally more muted?
Well, there is an element of that. I mean, of course, there is, that is a style to have that more washy, muted look. I think that really what it is that pigment is the expensive part of paint. And so, if you're mass producing it, it's much more cost effective to add fillers, to not include as much pigment, to like extend it out. And so because I am doing it myself, I can control how much pigment I want to do it. And I really do spend time just like saturating with as much pigment as possible. So you know that you're going to get that just maximum pigment load in your paint. And it will make it also last much longer, so.
Yeah. And when you create your pigments, are you mixing any pigments together to come up with like custom colors too?
Oh, so yes, I do that. I have a few colors like that. In fact, somebody contacted me the other day and specifically asked for a color, and yes, I did make it for them. So yes, you can do that. So you can combine two pigments together and make a new color. You, a lot of paint companies, everybody does that. So yeah, that is one way to get different colors. Of course, you could just also you can mix colors too, but yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And do you have any fan favorites or bestsellers in terms of colors? Is it like the hot
Sure.
pinks and the deep blues, or what's your biggest seller?
Well, you're right on the money there, Monica. Hot pink is probably, and then also I have probably hot pink is probably number two, but definitely my number one seller is the gold. I make this
Ooh.
like sparkly gold pigment, and it is, yeah, that is hard to keep in stock. So yes. I make that continually just all the time. And then I also I sell lots of little sets and I make sure that are pre-made sets with lots of different colors. I make sure to include, gold or in all of those because that's what everybody wants. Everyone is like, well, can I get the gold? So,
Yeah, that's incredible. And it's awesome to see and hear how you started because you were doing art exhibits for
mhm.
your art. And then people started to ask about the watercolors, and you were like, oh, well, I'm actually making these. This is potentially another part of the business. At what point or when did you decide that this could be a second part of your business?
Yeah, so one thing about paintings is that they're very expensive. Like large paintings, even small paintings are an expensive item. And so, really, it was my stepmom who suggested to me, she's like, you really need to have an entry level item that's something that people can, spend less money on, but be more attached to you and continue to be your customer. Well, a lot of artists do this in prints. And that is one way to do it. And that's a great way to do it. I somehow got to thinking I have this thing that I do that's unique, which is that I make the paint. why don't I start selling little paint sets and see how it goes? Well, I did, and I did one art fair, and I had never done an in-person art fair, like an art festival outside. And I put out one little tray of paints where you could, and this is something I'm known for, is where you can pick your colors and you can make your own little set. And so I put out this little tray of paints and let people pick their set, and I basically sold out. And I was like, oh, maybe this is something I should work on more. And so I started doing more art fairs, and I started putting out more paints and different paints and experimenting with different, little paint sets that you could buy. And then I went to Pinners with my daughters in Salt Lake. I met you at Pinners in Arizona, but in Salt Lake, it's really a big event. And so I was attending Pinners as a guest, and I saw someone who was selling watercolor paper that was like a coloring book. And my daughters were like, you should let people try out your paints. And I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. So then I made these little postcards where people could just do a little painting on the postcards. Well, then it took off, because when you could actually paint and see the difference between my paint and other paints, then it just exploded. And so now I do lots of events where I provide this free art project where you paint a postcard and let people try out the paints, and it does really well.
That is awesome. And now, when you're doing these events, are you also selling original artwork too, or have you pivoted to almost fully doing the pigments?
I have pivoted to fully doing the pigments
Oh, how
because
awesome.
um well, it's not that I don't sell paintings, it's that at these events I sell so much more paint than paintings that I've kind of decided to take up the space with the items that I know are going to sell. Paintings are so wonderful, but it does require like the right buyer at the right moment. And a lot of these type of events I do are really, people are wanting a project for themselves to do more than having a finished product of a painting already for them.
Beautiful. And I think, did I see on your Etsy that you actually offer sets of things that people can paint as well?
Yes, yes. So what also has gradually evolved over this time of doing these events is that I learned that people want something to paint on too. So sometimes, I've been an artist all my life, and maybe I don't think that people, I didn't think that way. Um, but people were asking me, well, what am I supposed to use these on? So then I started developing different, well, I call them painting books because you can color in them, but they are meant for watercolor. And then I also have little kits with instructions of how to do a little painting. And those are really great as well. And that way you can do a project successfully with instructions, just step by step yourself, and you can come up with a painting yourself.
Mhm. And for those painting books, are you illustrating or are you
Yes.
partnering with someone? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I do all the artwork on all of my books, projects, postcards. I do the artwork for it.
So, what are some bestsellers for the painting books? What are they like?
Definitely the wildflowers. That one I've sold by far the most. Right now, I have four painting books out. One is about the beach. I have a national parks, and I call it Sweet Tooth, but it's about sweets and desserts, and definitely wildflowers. That was the first one I did, but I think my customers are, 95% women. Flowers definitely, you know, very fun. It's a very appealing, feminine, and then also, flowers are very forgiving to paint. They're fun, and they look good no matter what you do. So.
Yeah, and talk to me a little bit more about your customers. What split do you think you have of artists who want these pigments for their painting versus people who are picking up a new hobby, want to get a paint book, want to like relax and try something new?
Definitely also probably 90% people who want to try a new hobby and probably 10% like professional artists. But
Yeah.
I wonder if that is because I go to events that not very many professional artists are at. I tend to go to events like Pinners. So Pinners is for DIY, people who like to do DIY projects. And so a lot of those people are doing that for fun, that it's not as their profession.
Yeah. It's interesting though to potentially open it up to think that maybe it could be something that would be in like a Blick store for
Yeah,
the actual
well,
professional.
funny you say that because I did just sign up for
Uh-huh.
well, the it's not till next year, but yesterday I just signed up for the North American Art Materials Conference, which is where all the art stores go to buy their materials.
Perfect. Oh my gosh, I love hearing that.
So I'm gearing up for that. That is next May, so I will be having a booth there, and hopefully then I can maybe get it in more stores that are geared more towards professional artists.
Yeah. What's really interesting is that you have a product that really can speak to two audiences. And
Mhm.
that is unique because it can be in like the Blix art store for professionals who are avid painters and also for the hobbyists. That's a beautiful business model. I love that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, speaking of, let's talk about anthropology. So just tell us what happened, what you were doing, if it was a casual random day and all of a sudden you got a message, but what was the story of how anthropology reached out to you?
You're right. It was a casual random day where I got a message from Anthropologie and I actually didn't think it was real. And I was actually at the Arizona Pinners. So it was actually 1 year from when I had met you when they sent me the message. And so I was like, oh, great. Let me read your information and I'll get back to you. Well, it was real. So that was so great. And they told me they were just interested in expanding their watercolor book section, which I had no idea that it wasn't even really on my radar that they were interested in art supplies, right?
Yeah.
So, mhm. So I sent them all my materials. I sent them books, and they really only asked to look at my books, but I sent them paintbrushes and paints so that they could actually paint with them. Um, and I did make an effort to like wrap it really, like present it really nicely. And I gave them a lot of materials so they could, around their office, they could all have fun doing the projects. Anyway, they said they loved it, and we went back and forth about different things, and they decided against getting that initial product that I sent them. So, this is one thing that I had learned so about going to art fairs and doing art fairs is that I had created a product for the postcards. So I mentioned before that I did that postcard project that I offer for free. And it's really great because people enjoy doing it. They're at the event, they take the time to do it, and they love doing it. Well, I created a product where they could buy that and take it home with like a little mini paint set, the postcards, and a little paintbrush in a little pouch. And it's a less expensive item. And then it has everything you need in that little carrying case. And so if they're hesitating on the price of the paints, then I'll say, well, I'll offer this product to them. So I kind of did the same thing with Anthropologie that I learned to do in-person events, which is I offered them this alternative project that had the paints and the book, well, it's postcards and a paintbrush together. So it had everything in it. I think they really loved doing all the paint sets and the book, but because it was a new category for them, they were hesitant um, they wanted something a little more casual, I think. Yeah. So then I sent that to them and they really liked it. So they accepted that. So
gosh. Okay, so what's the final product or products that they said yes to?
So they said yes. So they said yes to this one. It's called, well, I call it the favorite things pouch because I put the postcards, which everyone loves, and then I put the favorite colors in it, which are the gold, the pink, the blue. And so they accepted that. And I actually made a second pouch so that there's two colors. So that will be actually a new product that I've never sold, but it's a different version of the same product. But that one has kind of like more primary colors in the little paint set. Um, so that you could choose those colors as well, or if you got both, there wouldn't be overlap.
That's awesome. And will Anthropologie have those two or just one of
They
them?
will. They'll have those two on their website um, next week sometime.
Oh my gosh, that is incredible. And what are the postcards of? You said it's a pouch, some of your main colors, postcards. Is it the florals or something else?
All different. So the postcards that I have included in there are just a variety actually of postcards that I've used at different events and in the books. They're just a variety of random images. So there are some of the sweets images, some of the underwater images, some of the flowers. They're just a variety.
Oh my gosh, how fun. And one thing that you didn't mention that I want to reiterate, I think I mentioned at the beginning, but where did they reach out to you initially from?
Oh, Etsy. So she did contact me through Etsy.
Yeah, that is
Oh, and
incredible.
hmm And so when I wrote you that note, I was like, I really only got into Etsy more. I had started Etsy when I met you, but had not had much success. But I don't know if you remember that you came and spoke to me in my booth about your class and invited me to your class. Then I went to your class and then I signed up for Etsy Algorithm Secrets and I did spend I don't know, a long time, couple of months every day working on my Etsy, trying to improve it. And then, um, so that really, really helped me because she was able to find me through that.
Yeah, that's incredible. And did the buyer from Anthropology say anything else to you about that? It's just so interesting that they're on Etsy looking for unique products.
Exactly. So she didn't say she didn't comment anything about like the look or the style of my shop or anything like that. She just wrote me specifically that she was looking for watercolor books and wanted more. And so I'm guessing, well, I actually haven't asked her specifically about this process that she went through, but I'm assuming that she would have put like watercolor books into Etsy and, gone through them and seen the ones that she felt like match their brand, you
Uh-huh.
know, and
That
then
is,
ask for samples.
that is incredible. That
Hmm
is so exciting. And that's one of the main reasons why a lot of people are hesitant to be on Etsy, which I mean, I can understand. There's pros and cons to every single platform, right? There's pros and cons to social media, Instagram, TikTok, Etsy, Fair, all of it. But Etsy is the one place where when people are looking for unique products, that's where they're going to go. When
hmm
buyers from Anthropologie are looking to expand their watercolor book line and they want to find something unique that's not potentially on Amazon or that's not everywhere or that's up and coming or that's maybe a hidden gem that hasn't really been tapped into yet, they're going to go look on Etsy. And that is so cool that they reached out to you there. So after they reached out, a lot of negotiations. You sent them samples, talked about different products, etc. Now, with it launching in the next week or so, do they have your products? Like you shipped a bulk amount
Yeah,
to them and they're going to
yeah.
fulfill the orders as they come in?
This has been a huge, I mean, it's amazing to be on this side of a product because you don't realize what goes into the development of products until you're actually doing it. And so there was a lot of negotiation with them about, there was several things that we went back and forth on just about the look, the pricing, things like that. It is a wholesale purchase. So they did buy a set amount of items and then I had to ship those to them. That is also a whole learning process. learning how to use their vendor portal, learning how to ship to them. There's so many ins and outs of being in a retail store that you have no idea about that was like a huge, huge learning curve. And when I shipped everything out on Monday, I was like, I did it.
Yes.
Because it was like, oh my gosh, I figured it out. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's a much different experience. I mean, well, actually, I personally haven't been on fair yet. I haven't put myself on fair yet, but it's a much different experience sending small items through the mail to one person or, um, doing fairs in person. It's a whole much different experience working with a major retailer that has a lot of specific requirements and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have to do specific updates to your products? For
I
example, like
did.
UPC codes or changes to the labels or anything like that?
Okay, so I did. So they asked for two specific adjustments. So this is the thing that is amazing about this whole process. I have been on Etsy a year, but some people on Etsy have hundreds of thousands of followers. I still I'm kind of small. Also, I don't have a huge social media following either. So I think it's amazing that they're willing to like take this chance on me. But so one thing I did was, I am just a small business. I was doing everything literally homemade. I literally was using stickers on my tins to put my brand name on it, stickers for all my branding, you know, I sent those items to them with like stickers on it because that's what I had when they asked me to do it. And so then I was like, I cannot send this to Anthropologie. It has to be perfect. So I went through this whole process of manufacturing my items where I had everything printed on it. I had my logo printed on the paintbrush. This pouch has a keychain on the zipper with my logo, and I sent it to them, but seriously, it was handmade with stickers and like hand assembled. I had my logo printed on that. I had my logo printed on all the tins. That was a whole huge process. I actually sent them the samples with the stickers of where the things would be, and then I resent them another set of samples after they had accepted it with everything printed so they could photograph it with everything printed. They do photograph the items for their website themselves.
Oh, that's awesome.
hmm The other thing is they came back to me and they said, because I use these postcards at events and I make different postcards for different locations, different things, and they're just like, oh, actually, I have this option where you can buy a frame for $5 and you can frame your item right there. So my postcards are not they were like, these need to be a little more finished looking. They need to be, because I was putting them in a frame. They're not going to be doing that. So I actually did spend time like adjusting the postcards, having them trimmed around the edge to make them look more like a postcard. I actually put like a mailing um an address line for mailing on the back and things like that where and like a place for a stamp, because they serve a different purpose, and so they specifically asked for that, and I was like, yes, I agree with you, this is for a different purpose. And I had sent them what I had, which is just random things, you know. And then also I was tying those postcards with like a baker's twine, which is something I thought was cute and I had around. I was just tying those up with a baker's twine, and they came back to me and they said also those need to be in some sort of paper clip or something like that. Well, that I was like weeks researching paper clips, buying paper clips because I had to find something that was already manufactured that I could get a large quantity of because I didn't have time to design it. So I went through and I was trying out tons of different paper clips because they have to be able to hold all 10 postcards. They had to match the vibe, all this. So that was a huge long process. So then I sent them samples of paper clips and they chose the ones that I gave them a couple choices.
Yeah. I love hearing that because they're working with you and giving you feedback. I
Hmm.
think a lot of people would be nervous to approach or have a conversation with Target or Anthropologie because they're like, oh my gosh, if it's not perfect, they're going to say no. They're going to say no and they're going to reject me and I'm going to lose my one chance. But you were like, I'm going to send them what I have. And then they see the beautiful components of your business and have some small tweaks to elevate it and give you feedback and really worked with you to
Hmm.
bring it into fruition. I
Yeah.
think that's awesome to hear because most people think it would be the complete opposite.
Well, I was persistent with them in working, like that was another thing. I was persistent with them when they came back and said, no, we're not going to take this right now, uh, for these reasons. I said, okay, well, when I have, I went back to them and said, I have this now. Would you be interested in this? Would you, when I worked with them, I think it was a long negotiating. I mean, this was like a 6-month process.
Mm-hmm. And even when I hear 6 months, like to me, that seems kind of quick. Because sometimes,
Really? Okay.
I mean, I'm sure for you it was like the longest 6 months ever
Mhm.
getting it updated. But 6 months, I think, is fairly quick for something that they've been working with you and giving you feedback on. That it's not just okay, I like it, let's buy it. I like the 6 month mark. That doesn't sound too scary. Have they said anything about like you not being able to sell this set elsewhere? Is it exclusive
No,
to them?
no.
Oh, that's nice too.
Hmm.
And these updates that you've made, I'm sure you're going to continue
Yes.
across the
So I,
board.
when I, well, that's another thing. So when I had to get this manufactured, they have minimum quantities. It was much larger than the amount that they were going to purchase. Also, I think because of the economy and things changed from November to March when I was finalizing this, they ended up buying less than they had initially suggested,
Mhm.
so I do have I have a lot of this that I will be working on selling this or offering it to other places after, you know, it's been sold at Anthropologie. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what's super cool is you have a great selling point. When you reach out to other stores, have it be smaller boutiques or bigger stores, be like, hey, I think you'd love our bestseller. We're actually selling an Anthropology. Would you like to carry this in your store too?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I am in a lot of stores in my local area.
Ooh.
I've already, yeah, they definitely want it for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
that's so exciting. Wow, that's incredible. So, is the plan with Anthropology, they're having this on their website, see how it goes, and if things sell good, then they're going to reorder and continue and keep chatting with
That's
you,
a
right?
possibility, yeah. So, yes, that's definitely a possibility, and I definitely hope to continue my relationship with them and work on maybe other products with them as well, for sure. I mean, I would definitely like to.
Yeah. Tell me more about how you had to be persistent because I hear that a lot with small business owners that they really struggle with being persistent. So they'll
Hmm.
reach out to a store once, they won't hear back, and they start to feel not good enough. They take it personally. They feel like they're bothering them if they reach out a second time. So what was your mentality or how did you have to be persistent for this to come to fruition?
Well, for one, this wasn't a cold call. I mean, she did contact me, but I mean, I could have said no, like, oh man, that's too bad. They rejected me. Instead, I went back and tried to find out what would work for them, and just continue to negotiate with them. I think that you have to do that with everything, right? You
Yeah.
know.
So what
Mhm.
was your mentality? Was it just let me
Like,
shoot my shot?
this
Let
is
me
a
just
great
keep showing up?
opportunity. Let me keep working on this. I mean, well, for one, they told me they loved, after they had received my first set of products, they told me they loved them.
Mhm.
So that was a great, in because I knew that they enjoyed them.
And when they said no to the first set of products before you pitched the set and the pouch, was it just, hey, this is a higher price point that we want, or it's too complex, it's too complicated, blah, blah, blah? Like, what were those reasons?
Well, it was so it was because they felt like it was too expensive. So I sent them the book. Well, they initially asked for the book. The book itself is not expensive. The paint sets I sent them are expensive. And they felt like it was kind of risky for them because they hadn't really tried something like that with their customers, like a big paint set like that.
And how much is the paint set, that set that you sent them, retail
So I
price?
sent them one that was 89 and I sent them one that was 125.
Okay, got it, got it.
It
Okay,
did surprise me though. I mean, if you've seen, I mean, it was kind of surprising to me because their items are expensive.
right.
But I understand that when they're saying it's a new category, they want to experiment with it first. I mean, I do that also with my own products.
Mhm.
I understand that when I'm trying things out, I do a smaller amount, I test them out and see how it does before I invest in a larger amount.
Mm-hmm. And the retail price for the sets that they did end up getting, what's that price point at?
Maybe 45.
Okay, got it. So the 89, 125, they're like, this is too high. And then you came back and said, well, what about this? You guys love the paint sets, the pigments, the colors. You liked the artwork that's on the books. Here's a lower price option that could really work.
Right, right, exactly. And so this has a small paint set. It has six paints, then a paintbrush, and then the 10 postcards.
Yeah.
So it's a way to get all of it together for a less expensive price.
Hmm. And it's beautiful that they're doing wholesale too, because I've heard of horror stories where partnering with larger businesses that don't do wholesale, that don't buy it straight from you. And it's more like, hey, if we get a return, we're actually going to send it back to you and we're not going to pay
That,
you for
however,
it.
that is the case. So if there
Oh,
is,
okay.
they do chargebacks. So if there is, um, yeah, I could, in theory, be charged back and sent back products that, um,
And is that mostly if there's a return or something from a
I
customer, or
think
what
I
would
need
the
to
situation
return,
be?
but if there's something damaged, if
Yeah.
there's a problem, if it doesn't sell, so if it doesn't sell, they could send it back to me and do a chargeback where.
Ooh, and what are the terms on that? Is it like in 6 months, 30 days? Are they giving a specific
Days,
window?
yeah, I think 60 days.
Okay, cool. Well, that's interesting and great to know. And also can be part of your marketing plan of really promote it to your audience, get them to the Anthropologie site, talk about it. And this could be interesting too of how you really market that and maybe make it semi-exclusive for the first month or so. Hey, here's a set, all these updates you can get on Anthropologie's website. So fun little play you could do on that too, you know?
Yeah, that's definitely my plan, definitely to direct all my customers to them
Good.
as much as possible and help them sell this product. Because just like all businesses, I mean, we're in this together. Like, I want to help them to be successful at this because I want to continue to have a relationship with them.
Yeah. You know what else is super interesting that you could do? Maybe, I don't know if you've tapped into this or not, but talking to them about any joint marketing efforts you could do with them. Because you know for sure they send out emails. It could be, hey, would you ever want to do like a joint email and interview, some sort of inner like YouTube video or something that goes out to their email list. So that could be a good option too, to ask the buyer what are some other ideas or connections within Anthropologie, because that would lead to such a good partnership right there too.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes. Yeah, well,
I
I
love
hadn't
it.
thought of doing that, but yes.
Yeah, well, there you go. You got a fun idea. The fun thing is, as soon as you have your foot in the door, it's keep that relationship and that contact that you have, and see who else she can connect you with, and how it can grow. And man, this can turn into something. It's already incredible, but it can even grow and expand even more, which is so exciting.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Last thing I want to say, you said that you've been manufacturing things. So are you manufacturing the colors or is it the tins and the packaging, etc.?
All the packaging. So I'm continuing to make the paint by hand myself. So
Yeah.
that's one thing that I am unwilling to pass on. I do need somebody who would like to learn how to do it and work for me, but I'm unwilling to pass that on to a manufacturer at this point, because The way that I make the paints is what makes them unique. And if I alter that process at all, then they're going to lose some of that.
I love it. I think that's the perfect plan.
Hmm.
Love it so
Well,
much.
I mean, I would like to have, well, I do need employees that are going to be able to make paint. I do right now have employees that help me with like packaging, mailing, all that type of stuff, assembling things, but I haven't found someone who is able to make paint yet. I would be willing to teach someone.
Yeah. Well, that's next on
One
the
of you.
horizon too. Well, that's awesome. Oh my gosh, Nancy, it's been so good to hear your story, hear about your passion for what you do, hear about how your business is growing. Please share with those who are listening your social media, your website, where they can find you.
Okay, well, I have a website. It's called brighterdaypigments.com. I also have my social media of the same name. It's on Instagram, brighterdaypigments.com. I also started on TikTok too, actually, recently, and that's the same, Brighter Day Pigments. If you sign up for my newsletter, which is on the contact on my website, you will get notified when the Anthropologie link is out. And so I will be sending that out to my followers. So if you'd like that, that would be the best way to get it immediately. Either sign up for a text alert or emails.
That is so exciting. I am just so proud of you. And I'll make sure to link all of that in the show notes so people can find you and check out your incredible sets that are going to be on Anthropologie in the next week or so. So thank you, Nancy. Thank you for being here, sharing your story. And I can't wait to see what's next for you. And thank you to everyone listening to this week's episode of the Product Biz Podcast.
Thank you for having me.